blog. And it kind of keeps the voice going for this, because I realized once I finished this that I had many more stories to tell. There were so many more than I even thought had existed. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll do a daily blog, and it'll be just sort of funny observations just in my daily life of how these things affect me, these sort of funny anxiety moments, running into the spider web and, all these sort of things that seem minimal but can actually be pretty hilarious moments. I thought, all right, I'll start that, and I got on Blogspot. And I did it, and since it's free, it was easy to set up. And I thought this will last maybe a month or two. I mean, honestly, how much more could I say? And now it's 2015, and the blog is still going pretty strong. It seems to write itself a lot of the time. There's so many weird things that happen. So I started to blog. And a couple things. Do any of you have blogs? Yeah? Okay. So there's a number of platforms to be able to do it. WordPress is obviously a very, very popular one, and Blogspot. And I started with Blogspot, but now I've moved my website to create more of like a website feel. I use Squarespace, and there's also Wix and a number of other places you can do that through. And so that I can have the blog, but then also other sort of web pages. But I can get more into that in a little bit. So I started the blog in 2009 on my wedding anniversary, and we had the conversation at dinner that night, and he said, this is what you need to do. And it was just sort of funny, at that dinner, I actually choked on bread, and it was like, well, okay, I already know what my first blog is going to be about. This is easy. and so, like I said, things like this happen pretty regularly in our household. And now we have 2 kids, and so it's interesting how it goes from just worrying about yourself to worrying about your husband and your kids and your pets and your friends and everybody else. It gets quite big. So one thing I will say, though, it is a good idea to do a blog, again, because it keeps you writing every day, but it starts to let people recognize you. So if you're wanting to get the word out about yourself, about your writing, whether you're published or not, it's a good opportunity to just be throwing content out into the world, because it's a better chance for people to find you. And some days the topic is better than others, but I will find, I like to look at the analytics on the website, and it's interesting. I can tell when I've written something that will connect more with people. The page views are way up on it, and I don't often know, I think it's just people, my friends, who are looking at it, but then there'll be times when I look at where they're coming from, and it's places in the UK or, somewhere else, and I'm, oh, that's amazing. Someone is worried about this or thinking about this sort of thing, and they find it. So it's just good to have your work kind of out there on the web while you're doing your other bigger projects. Okay, so I started the blog, and then I was shopping this book around to publishers and agents, and there was a lot of interest in the book, but it would be like, oh gosh, my first chapter in the first book is about when I was 9 years old, and I blacked out during a dance recital, and I fell down, and I was pretty sure that I had broken my head. When you're a 9-year-old, this is what you don't understand, that maybe you just fell and your blood rushed to your head. No, I broke it. I broke my head. And so I got notes from agents like, oh, this is hilarious, and this brings me right back to when I was in dance, but I don't know who your audience is. And so I had to think about that a little bit. And so I sort of reworked some of the things in the book and really thought about who my audience members are. And that's an important thing to do when you're writing, is just make sure that when you start to market it to, or try to pitch it to agents and to publishers, that you can tell them who your audience is. And then that will help you when you're actually marketing the book once it is published. Because I'll tell you, self-published, small publisher, or even larger publishers, they don't have huge marketing budgets anymore, and they rely on the authors to do a good chunk of this themselves. And especially if you're self-published or a small publisher, and most of it is done yourself. So you need to be able to target the people who would genuinely be interested in your writing. So I received some nibbles, and I was waiting around for different responses, and then I received, again, a ton of rejections. Didn't stop me. Stubborn. Keep the word in mind. And then my husband had surgery for a hernia, and he was home convalescing. We were sitting on the couch watching TV, and I'm scrolling through my phone, and I see an email from the publisher that ended up doing my book, and it's Apprentice House, which is the one that you guys will have a chance to get published by if you do the contest with the state. But so they emailed me, and I was supposed to have heard back from them November or December, and it was mid-January, so I had kind of already written it off. I had this spreadsheet where I put things in there. Okay, here's all the people that I've contacted, and here's the response I've gotten, and if there's no response after a certain date, then I just sort of write it off. So I'm sitting there and I'm browsing and I'm looking, and I open up the email and it says, you know, we are sorry, and I went to delete it because I figured this is another rejection. Any of them that start with we are sorry, it's usually not a good thing. But it was, we are sorry that it took us so long to get back to you, and we are recommending your book for publication. And I almost lost my mind completely. And so my husband's sitting there, and oh my gosh, and he's like, bandage, just had surgery. Okay, we don't want to start any other health issues at the moment, but this is very exciting. And so then I ended up getting this published. And that was a huge moment, because someone else actually read what I wrote and said it's good enough to put it out there in front of somebody. And that is, if you're familiar with it, one of the best feelings in the world as a writer. If you're not familiar with it, you will be if you keep writing, because you will get published at some point. And at that point, I think I had already gotten the article in What's Up Annapolis that they had bought from me, the one from the contest, not too long before I learned about the publication of this. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. New York Times, here I come. But it, again, is not that easy. And I'm still not in the New York Times bestseller list, so I haven't quite figured out all the magic yet, but I'm working on it, and I will eventually. But what I did find interesting is once news came that this was going to be published, and I started promoting that idea that it was coming out, I knew the date when it was going to come out, I started to get more freelance work. Other people, it was like it legitimized me in some way. And so other people were then interested in hiring me to do a piece, a feature in another local magazine or a local newspaper. And then a friend of mine, she wrote for a magazine and she wasn't able to take something, so she recommended that I take it because it was something related to family and children, and she knew that I wrote a lot about that on my blog. So it was one of those things where just even putting yourself out there and continuing to be positive about your own work can actually lead to other people noticing and taking you seriously about it. You know, if you wait too long before that next post, then it doesn't look like you're, continuing and serious about what you're doing. So it's important to really just keep it up, be steady with what you're doing so that other people will notice it and it really does start to work. So I started to get more freelance work, and then a friend of mine from the Maryland Writers Association, so this is a nice little plug for the Maryland Writers Association, a lot of this came from just meetings. I'm in the Annapolis chapter, and a person that I met there that maybe I'd spoken to twice, she knew that I wrote this kind of stuff, but she was a current writer of a sports column in the Capitol, and she had gotten a new position, and she just didn't have time to write it anymore, and she told the editors that I should be the replacement. I mean, just being out there, talking to other writers, networking, and continuing to write your own stuff can actually lead to really great things. So this was an interesting opportunity. I had not written sports before, and then when they interviewed me on the phone, well, do you have children? Yes. Do they play sports? Yes. Do you understand sports? Yes. Then you're qualified. You are also a writer, so I think you could probably handle this, And I read sports columns before, so it worked out really well, and I was able to do that for 2 years. And it was funny because then I would be out, and they had my picture in the column, and I would be out, and I'm like, I recognize you from somewhere. You write for the Capitol, don't you? It was very strange because as a writer, we sit at home and we write things, and we put it out there, and I sort of feel like I'm just by myself in my pajamas or whatever, and I'm writing, and then it disappears. Once I write it, it just disappears out into the world, and I don't know what's happened or if anybody's read this. And oftentimes, once I submit something, I don't even read it anymore. I don't even follow up with it. And so it's kind of exciting to have someone come and find you and say, oh, I recognize you, and oh, I don't even have kids, and I enjoy reading that column. And I'm like, what? Really? It's a very strange sort of feeling. So it's been an interesting ride with that, because then I find that I'm starting to guest blog more. I'm inviting people. This is another thing. When you get on the web, you have your blog, or you're starting to promote your book, you can't just ask people for reviews for your work. You need to really participate in the online community. So you need to get out there and comment on other people's blogs. You know, find things that are similar to your work when you're writing nonfiction or even fiction at this point. You get out there and you read what else is out there, see what else is out there, comment on it, participate, create dialogue with other writers and other readers, people who are interested in the same things you are, and then you'll find that you'll have more opportunities to be invited to write on their blog, or you reach out to people and ask them to come and write on your blog, you know, that sort of thing, so that it's not just I need you to do me a favor. It's so everybody kind of wins, and it's good for everybody, and you'll find that you'll make more friends in the community that way, and it will lead to more exciting opportunities. Now, one thing, once you've written whatever piece you're going to write, whether it's, you know, you start writing for magazines, or you write a book of nonfiction or fiction, or whatever it is you like to write, promoting it is a huge job, and it's not always easy, and I don't have all the answers for it, but I can tell you what I have been doing to help the matter, and it's just as important as keeping at it with the writing and being stubborn with the writing. You got to be even more stubborn with the marketing of what you do write, because it's the only way you're going to get noticed, and there's so much of it that you're going to do that it can take a lot of time. You were talking about the importance of social media, and social media can absolutely eat up your entire day, but it is important. And so a couple of things that I wanted to go through with you as ideas. I've already mentioned the blog. Turn it into a website if it's possible. Make it look like a professional website. It's really not that hard to do.